Joan Landis. So we're going to learn a little more about things like depression, how to just drop depression. So this lesson is going to be an introduction to some general principles about depression and what it is, what it's not, those types of things. First off, we need to make a really firm disclaimer, and that is that if you are suicidal, if you are thinking of ending your life, if you have thoughts of ending your life or plans of ending your life, Resilifide is not appropriate for you. Resilifide is not to treat depression or to do anything like that. This is an educational program. If you are in crisis, if you think that you are not safe with yourself or somebody else, then you need to call the local crisis line or dial 911 immediately, okay? This is not for you. That's all I can say. You need to be with a compassionate person in person, not someone on the internet, and you need to have a professional assess you and hopefully get you into a program. So that's the number one disclaimer, is if you are suicidal at all, if you have thoughts of ending your life, plans of ending your life, intent of ending your life, this is not the right place for you. So please exit right now. Call 911, call your local crisis line, call a mental health professional. Okay, so we have to get that straight. All right, let's talk about what depression is. Depression is different than just having the blues, and there are certain criterion that you must meet in order to be diagnosed with a major depressive disorder. Okay, now not everybody that has some depression symptoms has a major depressive disorder. That's great, but there are some things if you have if you're struggling with some, symptoms of depression, there's definitely things that you can do for yourself and that you can reach out to others and be much more resilient in the face of that. So first of all, let's talk about some of those symptoms. One of those symptoms, of course, would be just, you just lose enthusiasm for life. You're like, everything seems meh. Things that you used to love to do, it just doesn't interest you anymore. It could be hobbies, it could be work, it could be keeping your house up, it could be crafts, it could be sex, it could be your children. It's just kind of meh. And that's kind of a sign that you may be in having a little bit of struggle with depression. Another one is if there's been a change in your eating habits or sleeping habits. And so maybe you're sleeping a lot more, maybe you've got insomnia, you're sleeping less. Maybe you're eating a lot more, maybe you're binging, or maybe you just don't feel hungry. Any of those can be signals that, okay, this is not just the blues, this is something a little more, serious. Also, another one is that you feel hopeless. Maybe you feel worthless. Maybe you have a lot of guilt about things that average people wouldn't feel guilty about, right? And so those are just, those are really important to pay attention to. If you are having thoughts of suicide, if you are feeling like you want to end your life, that's a sign of major depressive disorder. Again, if you have those going through your mind, do not stay here. Reach out for professional support and call a crisis line or 911. Another thing that can be a sign of depression is you just feel tired all the time. You just kind of feel like you're just kind of slow-mo, you're in mud or something. And that's a real key indicator of depression. And irritability can be a sign. You're just cranky. Things that you used to chill out about, they bug you now, and you just find yourself being angry, irritable, cranky, short-tempered. That can be a real sign of depression, especially in children. A lot of times adults will show up with depression and they're just like slow and sad. That's another one, of course, is just that sadness, having crying jags, or even numbness, just like I'm really not feeling much of anything. That can mean that you've kind of emotionally checked out, and that can be a sign of depression too. So those are some key indicators to look at. Another thing to look at is how long you've had these feelings, okay? If you have them for 3 or 4 days, that's different than if you have them for 2 or 3 weeks, pretty much most days every day. And that's so if it's just 1 or 2 or 3 days, okay, maybe you're just riding a wave. But if it lasts for more than 2 weeks, or that you need to take that seriously. And so those are important symptoms to pay attention to. Also notice not only how long they last, but are you able to function in your social roles, okay? So if you're a mom, are you able to get up in the morning, get your kids ready for school, and send them off to school and make lunches for them? Are you able to do that? Or is it like, I just can't get out of bed? I can't function in any of my social roles. I can't function as a mom, as a wife, as a community, volunteer, anything like that. And so the social role piece is very important too, because we all have periods of time when we do kind of feel kind of meh, things like that. But when we're actually not able to function at work or in our social roles, okay, that may rise to a level that, you need to, work with a professional and not just try to do this on your own. So those are really important signs. Now, what do you do about it? Initially, if you feel like you are not functioning in the things that you need to function well at, then I would recommend that you consult with your doctor and tell your doctor, him or her, your symptoms and how long they've lasted, and let you and your doctor work together and see if there might be some kind of psychotropic medication, some medication support for you. If someone is actually in quite a bit of distress, the research seems to show that pills, along with counseling, teaching the skills, is actually has the very best outcome and prognosis. If you just do medication, it tends to work pretty well at first, but then over time, a lot of times the medication loses its efficacy. But on the other hand, skills, sometimes, learning skills, like what we're doing in Resilified, sometimes it takes them a while to kick in before you start feeling a little more resilient. But the thing with skills that's really cool is that you get better and better at those skills over your lifetime. And you can actually, the skills become stronger over time instead of weaker. So if you're really having difficulty functioning in your social roles, then, consider the pills and the skills. If you're doing okay, you seem to be doing all right, I would always recommend getting assessed by a professional. There's nothing wrong with that. Certainly you can take an online depression inventory that, you can fill it out and find out where you score in comparison to other groups of people. And that might be helpful for you to kind of get an idea of where you are. And I would never discourage anyone who actually feels depressed. I would never discourage them from going and getting a professional assessment, okay? You can also do the online inventories or assessments to kind of give you an idea. And so that's always a good thing, because then you can kind of get a professional to give you some feedback. But you can also, ask your family and friends, do you feel like I'm kind of struggling? Do you think? And a lot of times they will have noticed something, but they haven't said much. And so that's, that's kind of an indicator that maybe, you need to learn some new ways of being. And that's what Resilified is about. So consider consulting with your physician or a mental health professional. I will never discourage people from doing that. Then the next thing is to start looking at, habits that you have, your environment, your family system, your stage of life, things like that. If you've just had a baby, postpartum depression, and if we call it peripartum depression now because you get it before or after the delivery of the baby, that's actually very common. Your hormones are just wildly in flux, and a lot of women have more than just baby blues. That's just kind of your hormones getting back into kilter, but Things can happen with your thought process and your hormones and body, and it can create kind of the perfect storm of kind of a significant depression. In those cases, I always suggest that someone consult with their physician and or mental health professional, because you've got a baby, things like that. So think of, and then also notice, does it happen on a cyclic basis? Is this like a monthly thing? Is this a yearly thing? We call that seasonal affective disorder, where, the winter months are just hard. You're not getting enough sun, you're not getting enough exercise and activity, you're holed up in your house, you've got cabin fever. And so seasonal affective disorder has something to do with the light and how it stimulates our brain to respond, and also some of these other environmental things. So that's an interesting thing to notice. Is it cyclic on a shorter cycle or a longer cycle? How does that work? Are you going through what we call a situational stressor? Okay, are you going through a divorce? Somebody in your family lose a job? Did you lose a baby? Are you grieving? These kind of things. And those situational stressors are important to note, because it may be that really you've just got a lot on your plate and you're just not coping as well as maybe you did in the past or as well as you'd hoped. And so that's really important to notice too, because situational stressors, you might need to really look at that and say, okay, I just had my 14th kid and I need some help around the house. I've got to hire someone, or whatever. You've got to look at that situation. It's not just what's going on inside of you, even though that's a very important component, right? But there are things in your environment that you may need to change. And understanding situational stressors, like, life events that have happened, if you're going through transition from single to married to pregnant to having a baby, having, the fourth baby, any kind of divorce or marital problems, health issues, parents issues, health issues, anything like that can be enough that it just puts your pretty good coping skills over the edge. And so you want to kind of look at that. And so I really recommend, if you are feeling like you're just having trouble, managing and feeling enthusiastic, I recommend that people go and do a stress inventory online, and we'll have a link to a pretty darn good one that I really like. And what it does is it helps you understand how your stressors are stacking up compared to other people. And a lot of times we don't give ourselves credit for really how much we are carrying. We kind of think, oh, I must be weak. I'm just not doing that well. I'm a lousy mom. I'm a lousy, teacher, whatever it is. And then we take these stress inventories, which is compares you to the general population. And we're like, oh my gosh, actually, I am having lots of stressors right now. No wonder I'm having a little trouble. And you have a little bit of compassion for that, and be able to understand that we need to, you might need to do some self-care, you might need to get some social support, you might need to get some physical support, and that is exactly the right thing to do, okay? So think in terms of, what signals there are. Maybe take a depression inventory, maybe get a professional to assess you, and then also look and see if there's any situational stressors. What's happened in your life lately, right? Then the third thing is start thinking about what has happened to you in the past, okay? And one of the reasons that we have the prerequisites for this particular course, there's at least 4 prerequisites for this course, is that one of those prerequisites is the course on trauma. And when people have been through trauma in their lives, very often later down the line, they can't put a finger on it, they can't really identify what's wrong, but they will simply feel very depressed or anxious or whatever. But for this topic, they'll feel it. They will start feeling it, and they don't know why. And that's a very important thing to also notice too. It's like, oh yeah, my parents were divorced and it was kind of ugly and I missed my dad so much, and you know what? I'm missing. I feel empty right now. And that might be where it's coming from, right? So we want you to understand the role of trauma in generating some of these things. Also, another thing is many times people who are depressed have tried self-medicating. What does that mean? That they don't know what to do. They know they feel terrible. And so they just try to make themselves feel better. So a lot of times they will abuse substances. They'll engage in what we call process addictions, everything from video games to compulsive gambling to pornography to sex addiction. You know, just those activities to try to distract themselves and make themselves either feel better for the moment or numb out, right? So all of those things can go into this idea of depression. And we just want you to kind of understand that this is it's a very big deal, okay? Especially if you know somebody who's been saying things like, I want to end my life is worthless, you know, I've been thinking, I just don't know if I want to live, I don't know, you know, I'm in so much pain, I just want to get out of this pain. Take it seriously. Don't ignore it. You need to get that person connected up with some professional support. Don't ignore that, okay? If you know someone in your life that's saying those words or having those kind of struggles, please do not ignore that and get them into someone that can offer them support and skills at the same time and most likely medication. So I would like you to take a depression inventory to see kind of where you are at. Consider getting a professional to assess you. And also I would like you to take that stress inventory and then get back on the forums. Tell us what you found out as you listen to this and kind of look at yourself and try to, you know, notice how you're feeling. Get on the forums and tell us, you know, what you found out, and that we can share that with other people. So again, if you are suicidal, if you're in crisis, this is not the venue for you. You need to call crisis line. You need to call 911 immediately. So hope to see you on the forums. Hope to see people who are just struggling with a little bit of iffiness, but not suicidality. So we'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.